Are bananas okay to eat? An amazing question. I hear it all the time now. When I was growing up, bananas were recommended to us to keep potassium in muscles for exercise benefits. Now, we weren't told about any details or anything, but just that potassium is important to help maintain normal muscle function. And now people are freaked out about bananas and other fruits because the question is, will bananas somehow make you fat? Will bananas cause diabetes? I mean, it's amazing what has happened. So this is a Google search for calories in banana. And the reason why I put this here is because what happens when you do a search like this, you'll see other questions kind of pop up. And down below you can say, well, first of all, a medium banana, 105 calories. And the people also ask, are bananas fattening for you? Amazing that these questions are being asked these days. It's all because of the high fructose corn syrup issue and the direct correlation that people have incorrectly made on their minds that fructose in fruit is somehow the same as drinking canfuls of high fructose corn syrup, which is of course ridiculous. When it comes to the real nutrient-deprived carbohydrate source, people don't ask this. They'll ask things like, how many calories are in one piece of white bread? Is it better to eat rice or bread? They don't ask about, will bread make you fat or will rice make you fat? Now, of course, if you eat low-calorie diet of any kind, you won't get fat. But the idea that we're going to blame bananas and other fruit is ridiculous. Well, I'm not a big banana eater, but I do like growing fruit trees. So here is a banana tree, and zooming in a little bit, you can see we can see the leaves, but in the middle here is where the fruit is starting to drop down. So the flowering, fruiting process is underway here. A little closer zoom, and then as these leaves around this, I'm not sure what the terminology is, but the leaves around the fruiting part, the flowering part of the banana, they start to open, and what we are left with is, here you go, right in here. This is a banana bunch that's developing. A little closer view of it. There we go, closer view. And today, right before I did this video, down there and took another picture, I got 3 bunches grown. So this was the first bunch I saw before, another bunch here, and another bunch here. The bananas are growing. Now again, for whatever reason, people ask, I don't get why, well, I do get why, because they've been conditioned to think that somehow fructose sugar, fruit sugar, will make you fat, which is ridiculous. So if we look at what the average American eats, this really kind of tells a story the best and should help anybody confused by this. So this is 2010, and this really hasn't changed during most of my lifetime, the eating patterns, except that when I was young, we didn't have high fructose corn syrup. That was entered in, and I forget what decade it was, but not when I was a kid in the 60s and 70s, or certainly the 60s. So this is 2010. Far right side, you can see adults 19 years and older, what they eat. And it's listed, you can see on the far left, number 1, highest calorie source. So whether you're 2 to 18, or 19 and older, look at what we eat most of. Grain-based desserts. And then number 2, yeast breads, bread. So we eat flour, so flour and sugar, flour, pizza, more flour, yeast, more flour. So this is just going across the lifespan. When you're 2 to 18, the next calorie source that's biggest, look what we see here, soda, and then bread shows up. So this is what kids age 2 to 18 are eating. Flour, sugar, flour with some cheese, soda, sugar, bread. And we're going to blame bananas for our health issue. So let's go back over to the adults, because the adults are the ones who ask the question, is it safe to eat fruit? Are bananas okay for me to eat? Meanwhile, look what they're already eating. Desserts, bread, and here you have your chicken and chicken mixed dishes. Here you have soda, alcohol, pizza, flour, corn, wheat flour, tortilla burritos, etc., pasta, beef, dairy, burgers, cheese, chips, Franks and bacon, nuts, white potatoes. So the problem is, and people are worried about fruit. So, of course, if one just ate pizza at 1,000 calories per day, we could easily lose weight. So calories do matter. And let's just say that I was eating 1,000 calories, 1,500 calories of pizza per day, and I was maintaining or losing weight, and I ate 4 or 5 bananas a day. And that pushed me over my calorie burning level per day. I would gain weight from eating bananas. Bananas didn't cause me to gain weight. It's because I exceeded my calorie threshold for weight maintenance or weight loss. So that is the important thing to consider. But when you look at this list of the top 16 foods that adults in America eat, notice there is no vegetables. There is no fruit. So how in the world could anyone blame fruit? Also note what we see here is basically sugar, flour. You'll have refined oils in the deep fried food, and you'll have meat. And so what do people blame? They blame meat for causing disease. Well, when you eat like this, it's not the meat causing it. It's not even the desserts causing it. It is the lack of vegetation at the expense, or I should say, it's the excessive consumption of sugar, flour, and refined oils at the expense of vegetation. So this is why on my YouTube channel, what do you see here? We say deflame your body, vegetation, vegetables. I don't even show fruit there, just vegetables. Now, of course, fruit are fine, but vegetables, because that's what people eat so little of. And the cover of my book, vegetables, needs to replace the refined sugar, flour, oil calories. And then if you go to my Facebook page, what do we see? See my mug again? And then, of course, you see vegetables on the cover of the book. We see vegetables here as well. Same thing will be on Twitter. So let's just continue on and look at the final, what is it, like 9 foods in the top 25. So here we are, so 17 to 25, cereal, candy, eggs. So let's blame eggs for causing our health problems. We're not going to blame sugar, flour, and candy. We're going to blame eggs. Rice will get a pass. It's all about eggs and meat that's causing the problem. Low-fat milk, more bread, some fish, some fruit drinks, no fruit, and by the way, here's salad dressing. What are they putting the salad dressing on? Their fruit drinks? So basically, people consume far more salad dressing calories than actual salad. That's how bad the average American's diet is. And we're going to blame fruit. We're going to worry about bananas. Great. So if we go to, this is the best, if you want to look at glycemic index, this is probably the best site. Well, there are 2. I'll show you both of them. So this is the University of Sydney's site, and you can see banana raw, glycemic index 47, glycemic load 11. These are just all different studies that were done, so they kind of put them all up here. But you're looking at a glycemic index that is, you want to be below 55 to be low glycemic index, so a little bit above 55, which we see are 62, 58. This just enters the medium glycemic index level. And for glycemic load, a low glycemic load is below 10, so here you can see slightly above 10. So really, in terms of blood glucose penalty and stress on the pancreas, is like nothing. Banana's nothing. Nothing. I had one guy freaking out worried about bananas, and he was eating 1 a day and worrying about bananas. So here's another good site to go to. Here's white bread. I'm comparing white bread to your bananas. So here is white bread. Glycemic index of 70. Well, that's way higher than what we're going to have with a banana. And then glycemic load. And by the way, the reason why it's a little bit lower here is because 1 piece of white bread is about 79 calories compared to a banana. So a banana is 105 calories, and a piece of white bread is like 79 calories. Okay, so this is looking at, again, banana calories. This is from Nutrition Data, another great spot you can see. So here is the glycemic load, about 10 as we said before, 105 calories, glycemic index. And again, you want to be below 10 is a low load, and below 55 is a low glycemic index. So banana is pretty close to being low, certainly low for index and borderline medium to low. So it's irrelevant. But what is special about bananas? Here we go. We're going to zoom in on the minerals. This is from the same Nutrition Data website. And we look here and we see calcium, 5.9 milligrams. Not a lot, obviously, but look at magnesium. People don't realize that many of your vegetation calorie sources, So many of your vegetation foods, fruits and vegetables, they have more magnesium than calcium. So this idea we have to eat tons and tons of calcium and think that we have to have twice as much calcium as magnesium, it doesn't really bear itself out very well when you look at all the various foods. So here you can see almost six times more, Bradley, 5 to 6 times more magnesium than calcium. But the biggie, though, is look at this potassium. In one banana, we get this much potassium. So now, what is interesting about potassium that is really like not known? It is like a secret unknown mineral that does. I mean, when I was young, as I mentioned earlier, we talked about potassium for muscle cramps was the big thing. But over the years, research has emerged, and look what we now know: potassium and risk of type 2 diabetes. If you're potassium deficient, you increase your risk of type 2 diabetes. Now, if you check, it's only a 3 or 4 page chapter in my Deflame Diet book, but we go over potassium. And it is shocking to see how potassium has been ignored across the board in nutrition land. So let's compare looking at the potassium level that we'll have in white bread to, say, a bagel. So here is a bagel. No one goes, hey, are bagels making me fat? People kind of know it. That's why they don't ask the question. But here is a bagel. So you have a borderline high glycemic index and a high glycemic load. And anything above 20 is a high glycemic load. So you got a high glycemic. This is much more of a blood sugar and insulin demanding scenario compared to eating a banana. So this is the bagel. So you get more calories. So you get about 1/3 more calories than the banana. And you get a glycemic load here of 17 compared to the banana. So it's not that dissimilar if you look at calories. But if you look at nutrient density, which people even scientists don't get nutrient density. They go right to papers as opposed to just looking at numbers. So let's look at a bagel. You see calcium at 50, magnesium at 12. Look at potassium, 10 times less potassium. 10 times less potassium in a bagel than what you get in a banana. Remember, potassium is important for insulin sensitivity and glycemic glucose regulation, which is likely why, if you wanted to, you could live on lots of higher glycemic calorie sources that are natural and be free of diabetes and heart disease. I'll show you that in a couple seconds. So this is looking at cornflakes. So high glycemic index and borderline high glycemic load. So no one's freaking out about cornflakes or oatmeal. They're wigging out about bananas. We got to go back to 1993. Lindeberg from Sweden, researcher, a so-called paleo diet researcher type guy, looking at indigenous cultures and what they ate. So let's look at the staples of this population. They're Kitavans, and where do you find them? They're in New Guinea. So the Melanesian Islands, they're in New Guinea. So if you just go to Google Earth, put in New Guinea, you can see where it is, South Sea Islands. Okay, cultivated boiled tubers. So they grow yam, taro, sweet potato, 50 to 70% of the diet by weight. And then they added fruit to their potatoes. Bananas. Right, the much maligned banana. Let's see what it did to them. What else do they eat? Well, bananas, papayas, pineapples, mangoes, guava, watermelon, and pumpkin. And then leaves, so basically salads, just not the ones that we're used to. Nuts like coconut, okari grow naturally down there. Fish, tapioca, maize/corn, and some beans. Okay, so what's their most of their calories coming from? Potatoes and fruit. So if potatoes and fruit were really the problem, then you would see an unhealthy, overweight, sick population of people. But that is exactly the opposite of what we see. So how much fish do they eat? Because they live right in the islands. How much fish? They eat 2 to 4 times per week. What else do they eat? You can kind of read through this. Chicken, eggs, sea eels, octopus, so various sea calories. And coconuts and fish provide most of the fat. Okay, so here's a traditional looking meal that they ate. You can just Google the Kitava study and you can see these pictures yourself. So they're not really heavily spiced, right? You just cook the stuff up and you eat it. So their palates haven't been twisted by all the intense tastes that the Western palate has been twisted by. So they eat very simple foods. And they're not unhappy. They're not depressed. They're not worried. They're not, this is no fun. I'm bored by this. They don't care. They could care less. So here are this is taro root that they grow. These are the tubers and more tubers over here. So various types. There's hundreds of different types of potatoes. And they all originated down there in South America. Yams and sweet potatoes, I don't think they're. Yams may actually be African. Okay, so what else do they eat? Well, they just throw their fish on the griddle and they cook away. Look at it, happy, no problems, all barefooted. And the most important thing that's of interest that I think that people should take into consideration is, look at this beautiful young woman. Notice her face is perfectly clear. No acne. Now you can get acne, of course, living down there, but it's like low compared to the westernized people living on, you saw the calorie sources of the 2 to 18-year-olds, and it's largely sugar, flour, pizza, and soda. Okay, so moving onward, here we go. So, will eating potatoes and bananas make you fat? Well, clearly not when you're young, and not when you're in your probably early 40s here. Shredded. Not when you're in your 60s. Shredded. Not when you're in your 70s, 80s, and 90s, and shredded. So the idea that bananas are going to make someone fat is ridiculous. It must be put in the right context.